Ladies and gentlemen,
welcome to the Big Buck Legends One-on-One Podcast.
All right, I think all the levels are set.
go.
Let's go.
Here's your host, Jason Toy.
Your home for the legends, Big Buck Country 101.5. Jason Toy here with you, and joined now by one of the all-time greats. He is in the Country Music Hall of Fame. He is also award-winning bluegrass, award-winning gospel, and we're talking about the great Jimmy Fortune. Jimmy, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Jason. How about you, buddy?
It is great to hear from you again. Looking forward to seeing you at the Bob Evans Farm in Rio Grande of the big farm festival, as always, which is a great event. But how have you been? You've been staying pretty busy.
Well, we've been really busy. I thought last year I had some heart surgery last year,
Yeah.
and I went through that, and I thought, well, I might slow down a little bit, and it turns out I've just, instead of slowing down, I've speeded up. But I'm thankful for feeling a lot better and doing better. So the good Lord's been good to me and allowed me to keep on going. So I'm just very thankful. Great to be coming up to the Bob Evans Festival. I'm really looking forward to it. Hadn't been there before, so it's going to be new to me, but I'm looking forward to seeing everybody.
Well, whenever you go to a Bob Evans restaurant anywhere across the country, you look on the receipt, they'll tell you what store it is. You'll see store number 1 on it right there when you go to it. So.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we go to Bob Evans quite a bit, and we're never disappointed. It's always good. It really is.
Jimmy Fortune is here with us. Jimmy, let's go back just a little bit here. You're a Virginia guy. I know in your home area you got a big old bronze statue of you playing the guitar there, which is really cool. And many moons ago, you got hooked up with the Statler Brothers, and I know how special that was for you to be a part of that. Have you talked to Don and them in a while?
Yeah, I keep in touch with them. Me and Don and Phil and myself, we stay in touch. Of course, we lost Harold back about 4 years ago from kidney disease, and we miss him very much. But I just got back from Virginia. I was up there for a few days visiting family and stuff, and just riding around the memories, of when I was 26 years old. Those guys hired me, and I was a nobody. And they pretty much saved my life. I got to give the Statler Brothers credit. I was working hard and trying to burn the candle at both ends to play music and be able to sing and play. And those guys, when they hired me, they pretty much rescued me from probably a disastrous life. I had when Lou was living then too. I basically had 4 brothers looking out for me, and those guys helped me and gave me advice and kind of nurtured me along the way. And I came in to help out because Lou was sick. And,
Yeah.
I had no idea that he was going to retire, but he decided to, and it really surprised me. But, I thought, man, I don't know, stepping into somebody's place. I was okay with helping out, but I didn't know about, stepping in and trying to, he said, you can take my place. I said, no, Lou, I'm not going to take your place. Nobody's ever going to take your place. I said, but I'll make a place for myself. And that's what I had to do because, he could never be replaced. He was so intricate and a part of the Statler Brothers for those 20 years before I got there. Wrote Flowers on the Wall, the song that really got it started for him, and did so many great things. And I just admired him, and I looked up to him, as I did all the guys. But it was a learning experience for me, and I treasure every minute. I look back on it, and it was happening so fast that you don't have time to think about it, which is probably a good thing. But when I reflect on it and look back at it on the outside, looking in now, it was a special time that brought back a lot of good memories to me with the brothers. They were the most awarded act in the history of country music, and to be a part of something like that and wind up in the Gospel Music Hall of Fame and the Country Music Hall of Fame would have never happened if it hadn't been for the Statler Brothers, and a lot of things wouldn't have. Jimmy Fortune would probably not be here today if it wasn't for the Statler Brothers.
What was the number one big advice they gave you as a young 20-something coming in that you still carry with you today?
I still carry with me they always told me, just be Jimmy Fortune. They said, you don't need to be anybody else. You don't need to be Lou. You don't need to be. When you come in here, they said, well, when we first met you, you walked through the door. They said, we love Jimmy Fortune and the way you presented yourself and the person that you are. And they said, if you always stay that and don't try to be somebody else, stay true to yourself, you'll be okay, and don't worry about it. And so they told me that, and up until they decided to retire and said, hey, here's your chance, buddy. and then they said, I said, well, I was scared, and Don gave me the same advice. He said, Jimmy, just be you. You don't have to be scared. You've done everything to this point, and you don't even need us. He said, just go out there and be yourself. And I said, well, I'll always need you. So, and they've always been there for me. So I just appreciate those guys so much for giving an old boy from Nelson County who never had nothing in his life until the Statler Brothers. I owe them so much. I owe my life. I really do.
You know, it sounds very familiar, and fast forward to 2023, 2024, the same thing kind of what the Oak Ridge boys were going through when Joe got sick and had to come off the road. Mm-hmm. Ben James stepped in, and they really embraced Ben and making him a part of that group, but they want Ben to be Ben, not Joe. Right,
and that's important.
Yeah.
And I know I've talked to him and given him advice and things like that, which he doesn't really need it, but it's a tough thing to step in after a legend like Lou DeWitt and Joe Bonzel. But when you're stepping in because there's no other reason, they really want to keep going and they want to do what they do, and they can't do it without having that slot filled, not that big shoes to fill, but the fact that they believe in you enough to say, here you are. And then there are going to be people that don't like it, but there's going to be, but you got to keep hanging in there until people realize and say, hey, this kid can do it. This kid's okay. And well, if it wasn't for someone stepping in and taking on that challenge, then they would have to stop. And so nobody wanted the Statler Brothers to stop. Nobody wanted the Oak Ridge boys to stop. So the fact that is kind of laid on our shoulders, not laid on it, but we accept that challenge, and Ben's the same way. And Ben's a great singer in his own right, and he is Ben. He's not Joe Bonzel, but that's going to give him another whole dimension. So. But we miss Joe. I miss Joe a lot as a friend.
Mm-hmm.
I saved all his voice messages. I have them on my phone, and I listen to them just to hear his voice. His last 4 years of his life is fighting this disease, and it was really tough. And we cried. We prayed together behind the stage and on the back of the bus many times, and. I just really hurt for him, but I knew when he stopped singing, when he had to stop singing, he wasn't going to be here long. But Ben James is a man to step in there and do it, and he can do it, and he will do it.
You talked about with Joe there, and we had Joe here in town with us, probably about the early stages of the ALS that he had and the disease that he had. And you could tell, but he still didn't let it miss a beat because he knew the excitement and the joy that he got performing with his guys on stage. I know the same thing you got when you were with the Statler Brothers out there too, was the fact that he just fought through it, and you would have never known that he was sick there for the first couple of years.
And, he even sang great, right up until the last day that he couldn't be on stage. Now, he couldn't really walk out on stage much, but he sang great.
Yeah.
And, I was sitting there listening to him on the side of the stage. I said, man, he is hitting his notes. He's doing great. And it's Joe. He's just got that sound, that when the Oak Ridge boys became famous, each one of those guys were meant to be where they were because each one of those guys were so unique. And just like the Statler Brothers were when they made it back in the 60s, they were so unique. And if it hadn't been that combination, it probably wouldn't have happened. You know what I mean? So they all were meant to be together. There's God things in this world, and I believe that with all my heart. And I believe God put them together. God put the Statler Brothers together. And then God also knew that whenever there came time for someone to step in and help out to take them the rest of the way, then maybe me and old Ben James our names were called, and so we answered the call for that position.
Jimmy Fortune is here with us, and Jim, before we talk about what you got coming up for us, what we get to see up on stage, what was it that hooked you and the Statler Brothers up back then? You know, I know you're both the group's from Virginia. You're from Virginia. What was it that was that ultimate hookup in there?
Well, I had been playing music 6 nights a week, 4 hours a night for a long time, and of all things, I had a night off. So 1981, the night before Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving night, I had those nights off, and I was called by some friends of mine to ask me if I wanted to come to a jam at Wintergreen, Virginia, a ski resort there. Mm-hmm. And of all things, the girl I was dating at the time, I told her, I said, I think I'm going to go to that jam. And she was really upset with me because she said, you don't need to be going up there. This is the only night you had off in how long? And I said, well, I don't know. I just feel like I need to go. I just felt that pull and that urge, so I went. And Lou DeWitt was there that night, and he sang, and I sang with him, and I did some John Denver stuff, and I did some Roy Orbison songs and some other things. And he just came up, and he was just head over heels. He's like, man, I love your voice, and I love what you do. And he said, man, and I just thought, well, maybe he's just telling me that to make me feel good. Well, a few weeks later, between Christmas and New Year's, I get a call from the bass player of the Statler Brothers, who was a friend of mine. He used to come listen to me play in Charlottesville, Virginia, and he said that the brothers wanted to talk to me. Lou was going to have to be out for about 6 months, and they said, well, do you know anybody could fill in for you? And I was the first name out of his mouth, and then they had about 26 other names out of Nashville that they were going to audition as well. But I was the first one there and talked to them.
Wow.
And went to sing around the piano with Harold, Phil, and Don at Harold's house. And I said, even if this never happens, I got to sing with the Statler Brothers one time, and I was so happy about that. I said, I could tell my children and my grandchildren that I sang with the Statler Brothers one time, and that was enough for me. I really, I wanted to do it, but I was just so excited about getting to audition. But it was because of Lou, and Lou pretty much, you would say, picked his successor in the Statler Brothers, and he did a lot for me. He really did, and helped me along the way, and would give me advice, and so I just kind of had to take the bull by the horns and make it the rest of the way.
Well, you know what? We always talk about the good Lord doing great things. He lined you guys up at the right time and the right spot and everything else, and it went on to be a Hall of Fame career for you. I know you put a lot into that, too. What was it before that? Were you a gospel guy? Were you a bluegrass guy? Were you a country music guy? Were you a mix of all of it?
I was a mix of everything. My family sang, we sang gospel songs when I was little, far back as I can remember. And then my daddy, we didn't have a record player, TV, or anything in our house till I was about 6 years old. Then my daddy bought a car, and I was sitting in with him after he bought the car, about 6 years old, and he turned the radio on, and I heard country music for the first time. And I was, like Jim Reeves and Eddie Arnold and Patsy Cline, and I was hearing that stuff and just going nuts. I'm like, man, this is so good. And fell in love with that. I found a guitar in a dump near our house. It had 2 strings on it when I was 8 years old. I grabbed the guitar and took it home and started playing it. And Mom and Daddy said that they knew that I had the talent to play it. They said, we might try to get you one for Christmas. Well, we were pretty poor at the time, and 4 Christmases went by. I finally got a guitar when I was 12 years old, and a real one with 6 strings on it, so I was real happy about that. I put together a band, and I was 13, and we played PTA meetings and things like that in school, and then eventually high school dances, and eventually out into the BFW halls and the Elks lodges, and then it led to playing Sheridan Inn Circuit, Holiday Inn Circuit, Ramada Inn circuits around Virginia and up toward D.C. doing cover music. We had to do everything.
I remember those. Yeah,
I was kind of well rehearsed in top 40 music of all genres, really. And so, and especially Statler Brothers, since they came from that area, I knew I was a big Statler Brother fan and a big fan of Lou DeWitt's. And because, we were tenors, and I liked that high part, that he would sing. And so that's how I got it. So I was playing 6 nights a week, 4 hours a night. I had a daytime job working at a car dealership there, Berlin Porsche Audi in Charlottesville, Virginia, as a service writer. Huh. And so I was burning the candle at both ends. I was really, really working hard. I had 3 kids at the time, and so it was a challenge in life, actually. And so I don't know where I would have wound up at. I was starting to drive. I loved cars, and I was starting to drive race cars a little bit right before the Statler Brothers hired me at the place I worked. We had BMWs sponsored by McDonald's, and the guy was getting ready to retire that was a driver for the BMW for the dealership. Yeah. And so I was gonna take his place. So I was probably going into race car driving and if I hadn't done this. So the Statler Brothers called me for the audition at the time, and who knows? Like I said, I'm pretty sure they saved my life.
Did you ever get the car on the track just to have fun with it?
Yeah, I was training. The guy was training me, and then I got to race it on at Summit Point, West Virginia.
Oh yeah.
So Paul, I actually got to race against Paul Newman that day, and I think I came in 8th place or something like that, and. But I was 2 cars ahead of him, so I thought that was pretty good.
Summit Point.
But I was in training, but it was fun, and I really loved it,
Well, let's say Summit Point is still active up there. Not really racing every single week, but they do a lot. Actually, utilize a lot as the FBI and a lot of the government agencies use it for their training for driving the limo for the president and stuff like that up there. So that's a lot of training goes on in that area.
That is a great track, and I love that kind of racing. I like that, road racing better than I did stock car racing. I just get bored with the stock car racing because it's just bland, it's usually circle and to me the road racing was a challenge because you had so many different aspects of it. It wasn't, you had to set the car up for all the turns and for running all kinds of different situations. But boy, it was I've always I had a need for speed, and got quite a few tickets along the way. And I'm not real proud of that, but I just liked driving, and just got a kick out of a car that had a lot of power and feel it. And I always pushed every car I ever had. I pushed it to the limit. So, but I don't do it now. I'm real careful now because man, you're out on these highways today. You really got to watch it because there's so much traffic, and I drive my own bus at times, so I have my license for that, and I realize the safety issues that go along, and I look back on it now, and I think, man, I don't know how my mama's prayers got me through a lot of things because, but I got that from my daddy. My daddy he used to run moonshine liquor when I was little, and I would ride with him. I guess that's where I got it from because he eventually got saved, turned his life around, and became my hero. And but I always had liked being with my daddy. But I guess that's where I got it from. Liking to drive, and he kind of taught me, that too.
Does Miss Nina let you keep one of those great cars in your collection? I know you probably got a bunch of guitars in your collection, but you have a car that is your baby?
Well, I got an old BMW that I drive, and it's a little convertible that I love to drive around the back roads down here. And and then but that's the only really kind of a collector car I got. But I got a Ford F-250 pickup that I love so much that I can't get rid of because I just love driving it. But anyway, I got Now you talk about guitars. Now I've got guitars. I got tons of guitars, Martins and Gibsons and Fenders,
Jeez.
and all kinds of different boutique guitars. That I've got some of the best guitars that I've ever imagined. After that, and I always get that same feeling I did with the little guitar I picked up in the dump that time with the 2 strings on it. And I tell that story in my shows about finding that guitar, and I dedicate a song from me and that guitar to the people that I'm singing to, because I felt something when I picked that little guitar up, and they're sacred to me. I love a guitar. I don't care if it's a $10 guitar. I don't care if it's a $10,000 guitar. I cherish them, and I take care of them, and I feel like they're sacred instruments, and they always will be to me. But I've got some great guitars now, and that's ones that I never dreamed that I'd ever have in my life. And it took me a long time to get a guitar, that was, I would always have to use somebody else's guitar because it was usually better than mine. And I would use other people's guitars, and then I have to give them back, and eventually saved up some money and bought a Fender Telecaster. And I would kind of trade back and forth to get a better guitar. One of the things I regret was I had a 1959 gold top Les Paul that I bought from a guy for $250 back in the early 70s. And a
lot of money back then.
Bought it, I bought it for $200, and then I sold it. The guy offered me $250 for it right after I bought it, and I said, "Well, I'm gonna make $50." So yeah, and so some years later, I go to Gruen Guitar down here in Nashville, and I go take it. He takes me upstairs, and the first guitar I saw was that looked exactly like that 1959. It sells for $495,000 today.
Oh, jeez.
And yeah.
Wow.
If I'd have kept it, look at what I had,
You'd have a new BMW.
Yeah, well, you just never know. When we're growing, I had a lot of guitars that if I had today, man, I could retire, just sit back and retire on just the guitars, But when you're young and you're trying to survive and you're trying to make that next step, you just think, well, I'll make a little money and I'll move up to this. But I don't know what I was thinking. But the guitar was heavy; it was real heavy, and I was trying to play it, and it was heavy on my shoulder. And at the time, I thought, well, I just want something lighter. So I think I bought me a Fender Stratocaster, a 68 or something like that is what I bought with it. So,
well, it was heavy on you because it was full of money. So,
yeah, all that money. Yeah. But boy, I tell you what, to be in the situation I am today and have, I never dreamed I'd have what I have today, and I'm thankful for it. Thankful to God that, from where I came from, and I'll always be thankful because. And like I said, for the Statler Brothers, if it wasn't for those guys, when I look around me, everything I see, I thank God, and I thank my mom and daddy, and I thank the Statler Brothers. Yeah.
Jimmy Fortune is here with us, and Jimmy, we could do this forever here, but I know your time is precious. We got to get things rolling. But I do, before we talk about the show with Bob Evans, one song in particular I've got to ask you about because I absolutely love it. We play it here on the radio station. By the way, also a lot of your Christmas hits are part of our Big Buck Country Christmas here too. So we love all that. Meet Me in Arlington. I absolutely love that song. I love the meaning behind that song. It fits perfectly in this day and age of things. How did that song come to fruition for you?
Well, I moved here to Nashville 20 years ago, and talk about God things. I move in right next door to one of the greatest writers in Christian music, Dave Clark. He's got 26 number ones to his credit.
Wow. And
still climbing in Christian music. And of all things, now we become friends, really close friends. He's helping me write the book on my life, which will hopefully be out the first part of next year. It's called Untold Fortune, and all these stories are going to be in there.
Oh, wow.
And so he came over to the house one morning, and he said, I got to show you this lady, this woman that was a Gold Star mom. Her son was going to college in California, and she lost her husband. He was a Marine, and so some years back, and the boy, her son, was wearing a Marine shirt, and a professor stopped him in the school, in the classroom. Somebody filmed it and said, "What in the world are you wearing that shirt for?" He said, "Well, I want to be a Marine." And the guy's like, professor's like, "You got to be stupid, man. Why do you want to go and be a Marine and go out there and get killed and for this country, when this country did this and this country did that?" And it really was putting the boy down. And like I said, but he said, "My daddy was a Marine." And he said, "I'm going to serve too, and I'm going to if I have to give my life to my country, I will." This was on the TV, on the news, and they were asking this mother how she felt when, and she had also lost another son, and this oldest boy's, the younger boy's brother had lost his life in Afghanistan, and she said, "Well, what would you?" They said, "What would you say to him?" And she said, "Well, I'd ask him to meet me at Arlington, and then I could introduce him to my son, and then ask him how it feels." And so when he said that, and I said, he showed me the video, and I said, "We got to sit down and write it." But I said, "We can't wait. We got to write it right now." So it was kind of her story. It was her story, and we just sat down and wrote what she was feeling when she saw that, and then what we were feeling also as we saw it. And so it was a pretty moving thing. And if you've ever been to Arlington, I'm pretty sure you probably have.
Oh, yeah.
When you walk around that place and you see all those stones, there's 400,000 and growing, every day. When you look at the sacrifice, and even when you go to the Vietnam Memorial or any of the memorials there in D.C., and you see the sacrifices that are made for this country, oh my gosh, it'll take you to your knees, and you can't help but walk around and with thankfulness and go, what I'm experiencing here is not free. It's been paid for by a high price, because there's always, there's forces of evil, there's forces of good, and the forces of evil, you don't understand sometimes the hatred and what it takes to want to hurt someone every day. And so what I'm so proud of the United States and being an American is that we are against, the forces of evil, and it's paid for by a high price, by their giving their lives and their families suffering while they're overseas or somewhere in this world fighting for our country, putting their lives on the line. My mother went through it with my two brothers. Thank God they came home. They're okay. But I saw my mom cry. I never had to go serve. I tried to join the Air Force one time, and I had 3 kids, and they wouldn't take me at the time. And so I thought, well, it may be one day I can write a song or two that would pay tribute to our veterans, and that I can say thank you to those guys. And I will. I shake their hand, hug their necks every time I see them, and they tell me their stories, and sometimes they tell me stories that they won't even tell their families.
Wow.
And then sometimes they can't get anything out, just tears. And I'll just hold them and shake their hand and hold on to them, and while they cry, it's emotional, the things that they've had to go through in life. And I'll never, as long as I have a stage to stand on, I will always say thank you and pay tribute to those veterans.
You've done a heck of a great job with it. I absolutely love that song, and Meet Me in Arlington there with Jimmy Fortune. All right, Jimmy Fortune, let's talk a little bit about what we got coming up on Sunday. What can folks expect to see when you hit the stage at the Bob Evans Farm Festival?
Well, when I hit the stage, I come out and I wrote a song that kind of says thank you to everybody and welcomes everybody, and I open up with that song, and then I go right into some songs that I've done through the years, and songs that have meant a lot to me, songs that kind of built my career. And I paid tribute to the Statler Brothers and was doing some of their songs, and like Flowers on the Wall, and I'll do some of the ones like Elizabeth, My Only Love, Too Much on My Heart, More Than a Name on the Wall, Meet Me at Arlington, pay tribute to our veterans and pay tribute to the Statler Brothers. And then I have a gospel segment that I go into where, because that was what I grew up on, and songs about my mom and daddy growing up in Virginia, a lot like the Waltons TV show. If you ever saw the Waltons, you pretty much saw how I grew up. I was good friends with Earl Hamner, who's the writer and creator of the Waltons, and I tell stories about growing up in Virginia, stories about the Statler Brothers, and then like I said, we ended up on a big patriotic note, and paying tribute to our God, who has been so good to us and gracious to us, and blessed America in so many ways. And we just end up on a thankful high note in my shows, and so I just try to make it so you can bring your kids. I don't care what age they are. You can bring them, and they're not going to be offended, and it's going to be something that's family oriented and a celebration of our God and our family and our country.
Well, and Jimmy Fortune's going to be up on stage on Sunday, folks. Get out there and check it out. Jimmy, I know it's your first time being there, so you got to take in everything at the Farm Festival. The food is fantastic, and maybe you can sneak into the Bob's Homestead right there to check out the old family home. It is really, really cool deal to look at there. So
I am definitely going to take it all in. I promise you, every bit of it.
Jimmy Fortune, thank you for all you do for music, bud. We love you. Congratulations on a fantastic career that is still going on to this day. And keep up the great work, Jimmy.
Thank you, brother. God bless you, and thank you for what you do for us. We couldn't do without you.
There you have it, folks. The great Jimmy Fortune. He is, of course, longtime member, Country Music Hall of Famer. He's in the Gospel Hall of Fame, too, with the Statler Brothers. And his great career continues on to this day, not forgetting where he came from with the Statler Brothers many moons ago. So Lou DeWitt bringing him in really obviously gave him a career, but he is humbled in the fact that he acknowledges that every day he wouldn't be where he is today without the Statler Brothers. Thanks for checking in with us on another edition of our Big Buck Legends One-on-One podcast. Don't forget to share it, tell a friend, and we'll look forward to catching up with you soon. God bless, be safe, and take care of one another. We'll talk to you soon here at Big Buck 101.5.
All right, son, the party's over.
This has been a Big Buck Legends One-on-One podcast.
Thank you for checking us out, and don't forget to subscribe to this podcast.
Okay, I need to tell you two things.
A production of Kindred Digital.
In association with Toy Production Services.
All rights reserved.
Big Buck Country 101.5.